Hi, I'm Silverpaw Reads, and this is Chapter 5 of Sontails Dreams Come True. What are we doing? Beep, beep, beep. Tails rolled over, muttering something inaudible under his breath. He brought his hand down hard on the blaring alarm clock that was producing obnoxious sirens beside his bed, silencing it immediately. He yawned, stretching his arms out, and rolled over, closing his eyes to block out the harsh morning light. Tails, honey, how are you feeling? You think you're up for school this morning? His mother called from downstairs. The scent of crispy bacon swirled up the spiraling staircase and wafted into the young fox's bedroom, capturing his attention. Tails licked his lips enthusiastically, jumping out of bed and running downstairs. He sat at the table, chowing down on the many strips of bacon that his mother had prepared for the two of them. Tails took another big chomp of the blackened food and spoke in between mouthfuls. Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks, Mom. He swallowed. There was no way he was missing school today. Neither was Sonic. They had to talk. This needed to be settled now. It was too crazy. Too unbelievable. He shouldn't be feeling this way, and he knew Sonic shouldn't either, but he can't help but feel faint at barely the sight of his love. He was like a man possessed, always waiting, following his love. His mother sat down in the oak wood chair opposite him at the other end of the rectangular mahogany table. She reached over the marble-top kitchen bench beside her and fiddled with the knobs on the homemade radio that Tails had constructed for his mother's birthday last year. Static filled every inch of the room, straining the Golden Fox's ears before the sound of his high school principal's voice broke through. "Attention all students and parents," the voice began, struggling to compete with the low droning of the static that was competing inside the speakers. "Due to the snow flurries and blizzards outside, school will be cancelled for the day. Have a nice rest, and we will see you all first thing tomorrow morning. That is all." The voice ceased, and Static wrestled back to control again. His mother turned it off, the sound of instant buzzing causing her to shudder uncomfortably as Static drifted back into all corners of the room. Their community was situated in the southeast corner of Mobius, and was one of the smaller communities of the land. Most people knew each other, and there was only a population of about 50,000 people strewn about the town. Due to this, there was only 3 different primary schools and 2 high schools, one in the north and one in the south, so it wasn't unusual for the principal to address everyone over the radio. "Since there is no school, maybe you'd like to invite Sonic over today and do some homework together," his mother suggested, beaming her comforting and delightful smile at him. Tails nodded and ran upstairs eagerly. He grabbed his phone and lay haphazardly on his bedside table and punched the digits that he had memorized into his phone to dial Sonic's number. "Yeah?" Sonic's voice came through the receiver, sounding tired, annoyed, and quiet. It was obvious to Tails that Sonic was frustrated that he had been woken up, but was way too polite to tell his friend. "School's cancelled today," Tails muttered. There was a moment of silence, but Tails could seemingly hear the gigantic smile that had crossed the hedgehog's face delightedly. "Don't sound so sad," Tails replied sarcastically when no response came. "Would you like to come over and spend the day at mine?" he questioned, forcing himself to make the words exit his mouth. "I'll be right over," was the reply before Sonic hung up. Tails rushed to his bathroom and wrenched the hot, cold shower handles to the left and waited for the calming water to cascade down. The anticipation was killing him, but he knew he needed to wash himself and get ready so he wouldn't seem repulsive to his blue love. About half an hour passed as the young fox washed his fur all over, making sure to use extra conditioner to make his fur seem extra soft. He combed down his bangs, which then flung back out into place between his 2 azure eyes as they did every morning. Finally, he picked up his toothbrush and floss, making sure to make his mouth as clean as possible. Ding dong! The doorbell sounded and the kit hovered down eagerly and pulled open the door. Sonic stood there, his emerald eyes shimmering and his cobalt blue fur covered in snow. Wind whipped his face and Tails pulled him inside and away from the cold. "It's not a good day out there," Sonic said facetiously. Tails smiled before asking what Sonic would like to do. "Got any food? I'm starving!" After Sonic devoured the rest of his bacon, leaving not one scrap or crumb left on his plate, he pushed his chair back and belched. "Sorry about that," he said, covering his mouth with his gloved hand. Tails didn't mind having Sonic with him for a whole day. It was such a great feeling to the young fox that nothing could spoil it for him. "Wanna go upstairs?" Tails asked suspiciously. Sure," Sonic shrugged, following Tails upstairs. The two entered and Sonic closed the door behind them as Tails jumped on the bed and sat up, looking at Sonic. Sonic breathed slowly, standing at the door, still clinging onto the door handle. "What am I doing?" he thought to himself. "Chaos, forgive me." "Is something wrong, Sonic?" Tails replied cautiously, seeing the distress on Sonic's face. Nothing, Tails, Sonic replied, walking over and sitting down next to Tails. The Golden Fox flung his arms around Sonic and brought him close, enjoying the warm embrace of the hedgehog. He ran his hands through the spiky quills of his friend and took short, big whiffs of Sonic's scent. It soothed the fox. However, Sonic didn't hug back. Is something wrong? The kit asked. Sonic didn't reply. He simply laid back and stared at the ceiling. Last night, you think it was a mistake, don't you? You hate me and only came over here to tell that to my face. Tears started welling in Tails' eyes again. He hated feeling so weak and constantly crying like a baby, especially in front of his hero. He never liked it when Sonic saw him so weak, but there was nothing he could do. His feelings of sadness and embarrassment flurried around inside him and ferociously as the snowflakes outside which hailed around and pelted the window. Tails, seriously, Sonic began, absorbing the sadness that was flowing from Tails. He didn't know what to say, what to do. There were so many wrong, confusing, wonderful feelings that all washed around inside of him. His heart was like a ship being flung about on the ocean, caught in a cyclone. One thing he did know was he couldn't take seeing his Tails, so sad. His sadness was the tsunami in the storm which caused Sonic to fall overboard. He threw all of his doubts aside and drew Tails close, placing his lips onto the fox's. He knew that they both couldn't throw caution to the wind. He needed to be the sensible one because Tails' heart was thinking for him. But Tails made him feel so happy. He decided to push these doubts deep down and gave himself to the kiss. Tails felt his tongue poke at pearly white teeth, begging for entrance into Tails' mouth. This part of the story was rather gross and not family-friendly, so I've decided not to include it. You can certainly read it in the normal fan fiction, otherwise I don't feel comfortable reading it. Sorry. Have a great one! After a few short minutes and what seemed like an eternity to the two teenagers and me, Sonic broke apart and fell back onto his bed. He panted, gasping in big, selfish gulps of air as he tried to fill his screaming lungs back with the oxygen that they had been deprived of. Once he got his breath back, he turned his head and saw Tails gazing lovingly at him. Sonic reached out his hand and clasped it in Tails', intertwining and connecting their fingers like strands of silk in a web that had been carefully constructed by a clever spider. He could feel the sweat on Tails' palms, but he didn't mind at all. "What are we doing?" he sighed again, getting lost in Tails' eyes for the third or fourth time. They shone like the color of lapis lazuli as his sapphire fur was being reflected back at the hedgehog's through the fox's blue eyes. "What our hearts want," Tails chimed in, gripping Sonic's now degloved hand tightly and pulling him closer. Sonic stayed, leaning back on the bed with his one hand behind his back and his head resting on it. Tails snuggled up to the hedgehog and rested his head on Sonic's bare chest and snuggled his face into the sapphire fur. He could hear the slow heartbeat and feel the quaint rising and falling of Sonic's chest. Sonic moved his other hand and placed it around Tails' body, hugging him tightly. Sonic was thankful for the golden fur of his fox love as the cold slowly began seeping through the window, and Tails had kept Sonic incredibly warm and toasty. They both lay there in silence, enjoying each other's company, until Tails finally broke the silence with a question. "Do you really love me, Sonic?" Sonic looked down, his eyes filling with hurt and shame. Tails looked up, returning his gaze innocently. Sonic leant down and placed a small kiss on Tails' forehead. "Please stop asking me that," he said coldly. "Of course I do." "But you have doubts? Can we not talk about this?" "But you do," Tails continued insistently, not wanting to let Sonic get away with acting distant. "Don't you trust me?" "Tails, stop!" Sonic quickly snapped, shifting position. Tails shoveled off of him, shocked by the sudden outburst. Sonic continued, "I love you and you need to understand this. Yes, it is true that I've only recently accepted and discovered these feelings, but they have been inside of me for a long time. I love you so much, but I am only wary and distant because I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's not allowed." Tails opened his mouth with the intention of speaking, trying to interject, but Sonic put his finger to the kit's lip and silently whispered, "Shh. I know our religion won't allow it, but frankly, I don't care. We can just be happy in secret. Nobody will ever find out. Tails nodded in agreement. He knew the consequences would be dire if anybody found out about their secret love. They would be chased out of town or sent to prison. If they had to flee to another community and pass their borders, they might be killed for trespassing or start a war. Neither wanted that. It had to be kept secret. Tails decided to push the thoughts out of his head and push his luck with his love instead. "How much do you love me, Sonic?" Tails began, trying to see how much Sonic would say so early in their secret but forbidden love. "Don't push your luck, buddy," he laughed. He looked up at the sky, the sun being covered by the clouds and the hexagonal individual snowflakes peppered throughout the sky outside, littering the ground in sheets of white. "Look outside," he said, finally. Tails glanced up, noticing the shimmering flakes dancing on the wind. "They are beautiful," he remarked. "Not as much as you," Sonic chimed in. "Count them all. I could stare up at the sky and match each single snowflake with the reason for how much I love you, but not enough snowflakes could fall before I run out of reasons." Tails stared at him, mouth agape. Since when was Sonic so profound and filled with whimsy? He thought. "Sorta sappy, isn't it? Can't get more cliche, can I?" he remarked, a smirk crossing his face as he tried to turn his words into a joke. "You're such a geek," Tails laughed, giving him a big hug and placing his lips against Sonic's again, who kissed back happily. He whispered between kisses, "It was beautiful. I love you, Sonic." "I love you too, Tails," Sonic said, kissing back even harder. Each enjoyed every single second of this time they had together, both wishing that they had revealed, or in Sonic's case, discovered their feelings for each other previously. From this moment on, they were more than just best friends and closer than measly brothers. Although both were the only child in their families and didn't know the true feeling of a brother, they were lovers, inseparable soulmates. Suddenly, Tails' ears picked up as he heard footsteps crunching down the hall, coming briskly towards his room. Sonic reacted fast, having much quicker reaction times than Tails. He swiftly snatched their 10th grade mathematics textbook and threw it onto the bed. It flung open to a page about trigonometry, right at the same moment that Tails' mother opened the door. "How's the study going, boys?" she asked, noticing the textbook laying haphazardly on the bed sheets. "Good," the two teenagers chimed in unison. "Sonic, darling, your parents just called saying they'd like you home for lunch." "Okay, Miss Prower, see you at school tomorrow, Tails." He smiled, giving his signature thumbs up before sprinting out of the room and the house. Tails waited until his mother left before sighing. "Don't leave so soon," he muttered to himself. Sonic ran home, feeling the harsh, freezing winds whip his face and sting his eyes. Although most Mobians hated this feeling, it made Sonic feel alive. At that same moment, he passed the park in which the two boys used to frequent and play when they were younger. "Why did I have to leave so soon?" he cried out. Suddenly, like chaos was watching from above, doubts flooded through his head. Maybe it was because of the snow, or maybe we couldn't think of straight now because he wasn't in Tails' presence. "What are we doing?" he thought to himself again, unable to get the thought out of his mind for more than a few seconds. Why does everyone have to be a good in this world? He tossed these thoughts aside, begging for them to flood out of his head like water down a drain. He raced the rest of the way home, picturing his love in his mind, until he arrived at the door, smiling happily. That's it for Chapter 5. I'll see you guys next time for Chapter 6, titled Cruel School.